You ever notice how some of the nicest people in the world get stepped on, ignored, and overlooked? They give and give and give, yet they end up empty. They work hard, love harder, and still finish last. Why? Because life doesn't reward the person who simply plays nice. Life rewards the person who knows their worth, who protects it with boundaries, and who refuses to let kindness turn into weakness. Today, I want to show you exactly why nice guys finish last, and how setting boundaries can change everything. You ever met someone who prides themselves on being the nice one? They're always smiling, always saying yes, always making sacrifices so that others can feel comfortable. At first glance, it seems like such a noble thing, right? People applaud them. They get called dependable, reliable, even selfless. But underneath all that niceness, there's a quiet storm brewing. Because being nice without understanding the cost is not kindness. It's a slow destruction of your own value. The truth is, people don't respect someone who is always available. They don't admire the one who never speaks up, who never pushes back, who lets everyone else's needs matter more than their own. They use them, they take advantage, and over time, they stop even noticing the effort that person gives. That's the tragedy of being too nice. The problem isn't in caring for others. The problem is in confusing niceness with worth. When you believe that your only way to be loved is to make sure everyone else is happy, you set yourself up to be drained, ignored, and eventually discarded. Because let's be real, human nature rarely values what it can easily access without effort. Think about it. When was the last time someone deeply appreciated something that was always free, always available, always there whenever they wanted it? Most of the time, the things that are valued are the ones that have boundaries, the ones that require investment, the ones that demand respect before they're given access. If you never protect your energy, your time, and your heart, then you send a silent message that says, I don't matter as much as you do. And people, whether they mean to or not, will believe that message. That's why so many nice people finish last. They think they're doing the right thing by being agreeable, by avoiding conflict, by sacrificing themselves for others. But in reality, they're slowly teaching the world that their voice doesn't need to be heard, their needs don't need to be considered, and their boundaries don't even exist. Once the world learns that it rarely gives back what was taken, instead it keeps taking, keeps demanding, and keeps expecting more. The nice person becomes the go-to for favors, the one everyone calls when they're in trouble, the one who fixes problems, but gets no recognition in return. And inside, resentment grows. What's dangerous is that most of these so-called nice guys don't even realize they're betraying themselves. They think they're showing love, when in reality they're giving up their dignity. They think they're being helpful, when really they're being used. They think they're proving their worth, when actually they're lowering it. Because worth isn't proven by how much you tolerate, it's proven by how much you refuse to tolerate. People respect strength, and strength doesn't mean being harsh or cruel. Strength means having a backbone. It means being kind, but not at the expense of your identity. It means being generous, but not at the expense of your peace. When you're always trying to please, you lose yourself in the process. You wake up one day and realize you don't even know who you are anymore, because every decision you've made was shaped by what others wanted, not what you needed. Here's the harsh reality. The same people you're bending over backward to please will rarely return that loyalty. They'll take what you give, and when you're drained, they'll find someone else to drain. That's the cycle. And if you don't wake up and recognize it, you'll keep living a life where your kindness is mistaken for weakness and your generosity is treated like obligation. So being nice is not the problem. The problem is when niceness is rooted in fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being alone, fear of not being good enough. That kind of niceness is dangerous because it chains you to people who don't respect you and keeps you locked out of the respect you actually deserve. It's not true kindness if it costs you your self-worth. It's not true love if you have to destroy yourself to earn it. True kindness comes with limits, with dignity, with an understanding that your time, your energy, and your heart are valuable. Because only then can people see the real worth of what you bring into their lives. Respect is never something that just falls into your lap because you were nice enough, polite enough, or agreeable enough. Respect is the natural result of the standards you set for yourself and the boundaries you put in place for others. Too many people think that if they just give and compromise and avoid conflict, people will treat them with honor. But in reality, when you fail to create boundaries, you invite people to define the relationship on their terms. Without limits, you become someone who bends until you break, someone who adjusts until you disappear, someone who allows others to take without ever asking themselves what they're giving back. And the truth is, people rarely stop to reflect on how much they're taking until you make them. Boundaries are what teach others the value of your presence. Think about it. If you walked into a home with no doors, no walls, and no locks, would you respect that space? Probably not. You could come and go as you please, take what you want, and never once consider what it costs the owner. That's what a life without boundaries looks like. People will walk in and out of it freely, leaving their mess, draining your energy and taking your time without ever considering the price. But when a home has walls, when a gate is locked, when a door requires a key, suddenly the space has value. It is protected and people have to earn access. That's what boundaries do in your life. They create protection around your dignity, your time and your worth, so that the only people who stay are the ones who respect the cost of being there. Boundaries are not about pushing people away. They're about defining where you stand and what you will or won't allow. They are a declaration of self-respect. Every time you say, "This is my line," you're teaching others how to treat you. And if you don't say it, the world will assume you have none, and they'll treat you accordingly. A person without boundaries is like a road without lines. Chaos will eventually happen. Cars will swerve, collisions will occur. No one will feel safe driving there. But when lines are drawn, when clear direction is set, people know where they can and cannot go. Boundaries create order, structure, and safety in your relationships, in your career, and in your personal growth. And here's the thing about respect. It's not given out of pity. It's not given out of sympathy. And it's not given just because you've been patient. It's given when others recognize that you value yourself to protect what matters. If you let someone talk to you any way they want, they will. If you let someone waste your time, they will. If you let someone take advantage of your generosity, they will. It's not because people are evil. It's because people are human. Human nature pushes as far as it's allowed to go. That's why your boundaries must be firm, clear, and non-negotiable. They are the invisible fences that keep your peace intact and your worth visible. And understand this, boundaries are not selfish. They're sacred. They're not walls meant to keep love out. They're gates meant to let the right kind of love in. When you say no to toxic behavior, you say yes to healthy relationships. When you say no to constant demands that drain you, you say yes to growth, rest, and purpose. Boundaries do not limit your life. They expand it. They ensure that the people who surround you are there because they respect who you are, not because they can exploit what you give. Boundaries transform arrangements into relationships. They separate those who are just around for convenience from those who are truly committed. They filter out the takers and highlight the ones willing to give as much as they receive. Without boundaries, you don't just lose respect, you lose yourself. You lose your sense of direction. You lose your ability to make choices with clarity. And you lose the strength to stand in your own identity. But with them, you stand taller. You speak clearer. You attract people who see your worth, not just your usefulness. And slowly, you begin to experience what it feels like to be valued for who you are, not just for what you can do. You will never experience true respect from others until you have learned how to respect yourself. And self-respect begins with an honest acknowledgement of your worth. Too many people live their lives begging for recognition, chasing approval, and waiting for others to validate them. They pour out everything they have, hoping that someone will finally look at them and say, "You matter." But the reality is, the world often mirrors back to you the way you treat yourself. If you walk around undervaluing your own time, if you constantly dismiss your own needs, if you put everyone else above yourself, then others will assume that's the way you want to be treated You cannot expect the world to recognize what you refuse to recognize within yourself. Self-worth is not arrogance, it's not ego, and it's not about thinking you're better than everyone else. It's about understanding that you are worthy of love, respect, and dignity without having to perform for it. It's about knowing that your presence has value even when you're not doing anything for anyone else. The danger of ignoring this is that you end up negotiating your worth in relationships, in friendships, in careers, and in life itself. You settle for less than you deserve because deep down you don't believe you deserve more. And that's where people start to take advantage, because it's easy to underpay, to overlook, or to misuse someone who doesn't recognize the power they hold. When you truly embrace your worth, you stop trading your peace for approval. You stop sacrificing your dignity just to keep people around. You stop bending yourself into shapes that don't fit your soul. And that's when boundaries naturally begin to form. See, boundaries are not rules you force on people. They are simply the overflow of self-worth. A person who knows their value doesn't need to shout about it or argue about it. Their presence alone communicates it. They carry themselves in a way that says, I will not allow myself to be disrespected. I will not remain in spaces where my worth is ignored. I will not chase people who are running from me. That quiet confidence speaks louder than any words ever could. Think about the difference between someone who knows their worth and someone who doesn't. A person without self-worth clings to relationships that drain them, tolerates jobs that diminish them, and entertains conversations that tear them down. A person with self-worth walks away from all of that, not with bitterness, but with certainty that there's more waiting for them. And that decision alone shifts the energy around them. Because when you refuse to accept less, you create space for more. You begin to attract opportunities, connections, and experiences that match the level of respect you've given yourself. The standard you set for yourself becomes the standard others have to meet. And here's what most people don't realize. Self-worth doesn't just change how others see you. It changes how you see the world. When you recognize your own value, you no longer feel the need to compete for attention, because you understand that no one else's light can dim your own. You no longer feel desperate for someone to choose you, because you've already chosen yourself. You no longer settle for crumbs, because you know you're worthy of the whole table. And this isn't just about personal relationships, it's about every area of life. The way you see your worth will affect the risks you take, the dreams you pursue, and the vision you chase. If you see yourself as unworthy, you'll shrink back from opportunities because you'll assume you don't belong. If you see yourself as valuable, you'll step boldly into spaces where your gifts can shine. And every time you carry yourself with that sense of value, you send a message that reshapes the way the world responds to you. Because the truth is, people treat you based on the standard you set. If you settle for disrespect, you'll receive it. If you demand respect, not with anger, but with quiet certainty, you'll receive it. That's why the journey of boundaries always begins with the journey of self-worth. You can't draw lines to protect yourself if you don't first believe you are worth protecting. You can't say no to what drains you if you don't believe your peace matters. And you can't stand tall in the face of disrespect if you don't believe your voice deserves to be heard. Everything changes when you stop waiting for others to confirm your value and decide to confirm it yourself. Every time you say no to something that doesn't serve you, you're creating room for something greater to enter your life. The problem is, most people are terrified of saying no because they're afraid of disappointing someone, losing someone, or being judged as selfish. So they keep saying yes, even when it hurts, even when it drains them, even when deep down they know it's the wrong choice. And over time, that constant yes becomes a prison. You end up living someone else's schedule, carrying someone else's burdens, and sacrificing your own purpose for the sake of pleasing people who might not even appreciate it. That's the trap of an uncontrolled yes. It feels like kindness, it's actually compromise. It feels like generosity, but it's actually avoidance. It feels like love, but it's actually fear. Saying no is one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself because it teaches you and everyone around you what you truly value. When you refuse to give your time to things that drain you, you create time for the things that build you. When you refuse to say yes to relationships that keep you small, you create space for connections that help you grow. When you refuse to accept opportunities that don't align with your purpose, you open yourself up to the ones that take you further than you imagined. Every no is really a yes in disguise. It's a yes to your peace, your growth, your dignity, and your destiny. But here's the reality. People who are used to taking advantage of your yes will not applaud your no. They'll get angry. They'll call you difficult. They'll accuse you of changing. And the truth is, they're right. You are changing. You're changing into someone who finally understands that their life has value. And anyone who benefits from you having no boundaries will always be upset when you finally draw one. That's not a sign you're wrong. It's proof that you're finally right. Because boundaries don't expose the worst in you. They expose the truth about others. They reveal who was there for you and who was only there for what you could give. Think about how many times you've said yes and immediately regretted it. You said yes to favors you didn't have the energy for, yes to invitations you didn't want to accept, yes to responsibilities that had nothing to do with your purpose. And afterward, you felt resentful, frustrated, and exhausted. That's what happens when your mouth says yes, but your soul is screaming no. The resentment doesn't come from helping people. It comes from betraying yourself. If you keep betraying yourself just to keep others comfortable, you will eventually burn out. You cannot keep pouring into people who refuse to pour back into you and expect to stay full. The discipline of no is not about being cold or uncaring. It's about being clear. It's about knowing that your time, your energy, and your heart are limited resources, and you cannot afford to waste them on things that don't align with your purpose. Think of your life like a garden. If you say yes to every seed, even the weeds, soon the weeds will choke out the flowers. But if you have the courage to say no to the weeds, your garden has room to bloom. That's what no does. It clears the soil so growth can actually happen. And here's the beautiful thing: the more you practice saying no, the more you start to realize you don't lose as much as you thought. You feared losing friends, but the real ones stayed. You feared losing opportunities, but better ones came. You feared losing approval, but you gained respect. Every no that felt scary at first becomes a stepping stone to the life you were always meant to live. Because saying no isn't rejection, it's redirection. It's turning away from what was never meant for you so that you can walk into what was always waiting for you. Nice guys finish last because they spend their lives trying to make sure everybody else is happy while quietly sacrificing their own vision. They confuse being agreeable with being valuable, and they think that if they keep the peace and never rock the boat, they'll be rewarded with love, loyalty, and respect. But the reality is, people pleasers are often overlooked because they blend into the background. Leaders, on the other hand, don't live to be liked. They live to fulfill a purpose. Leaders don't chase validation, they create direction. And the moment you stop living to please people and start living to lead yourself, your entire life begins to shift. There's a big difference between being nice and being strong. Nice is when you adjust yourself to make sure no one else feels uncomfortable, even if it costs you your peace. Strong is when you hold your ground, even if it makes people uncomfortable, because you know your worth and you know where you're going. The nice guy gives in to every demand, every request, every opinion. The leader listens, but then makes decisions based on vision, not on pressure. The nice guy bends until he breaks. The leader bends when necessary, but never loses his backbone. That's why leadership attracts respect, while constant pleasing attracts dependence. People admire strength, not surrender. When you step into leadership, you stop apologizing for who you are and what you need. You stop asking for permission to dream big. You stop shrinking yourself so others can feel tall. Instead, you begin to set a standard, and people around you either rise to it or remove themselves. And while it may feel uncomfortable to lose people, what you're really losing are those who only stayed because you were willing to compromise yourself for their comfort. The ones who truly belong in your life won't need you to shrink. They'll celebrate when you stand tall. Think about how much time is wasted trying to gain approval from people who will never truly give it. No matter how much you give, it's not enough. No matter how much you sacrifice, they'll expect more. That's because approval is a moving target. You'll never hit it. But respect is different. Respect comes when you set boundaries and stand firm. It comes when you make decisions based on your values instead of their opinions. And when you stop living for validation, you start attracting respect naturally. People may not always like your choices, but they will recognize your strength. And strength is magnetic. The transition from pleaser to leader begins in small moments. It's in the moment when someone asks you for something you know will stretch you too thin. And instead of saying yes out of guilt, you confidently say no. It's in the moment when your opinion is different from the crowd. And instead of staying silent, you speak up. It's in the moment when fear tells you to stay small, vision tells you to step up, and you choose vision. Those small decisions add up, and before long, you're no longer the person who's easily overlooked. You've become the one who sets the tone, the one who influences, the one who carries weight in every room you walk into. Leadership doesn't mean you stop caring about people. It means you care enough to lead them rather than enable them. It means you love them enough to speak the truth instead of feeding them lies just so they'll like you. It means you value them enough to show them what strength looks like instead of modeling weakness disguised as kindness. True leaders inspire by example, not by approval. And the people who once dismissed you for being too soft will start paying attention because they can sense the shift in your presence. You're no longer begging to be seen. You're commanding the room without even trying. And here's the truth. When you stop living as a pleaser and step into the role of a leader, you stop finishing last. Because the finish line isn't about who liked you. It's about who respected you, who followed you, and who was changed because you had the courage to stop blending in and start standing up. The moment you decide to stop living for approval and start living with boundaries is the moment your entire life shifts. For too long, many people have mistaken being agreeable for being valuable, and they've confused being accepted with being respected. But the truth is, when you set boundaries, you don't lose your kindness, you amplify it. Because real kindness is never about letting people take advantage of you. It's about giving from a place of strength. Depletion. The day you say, I'm done being the nice guy who always finishes last, is the day you start to live free, unapologetic, and full of purpose. Living without boundaries keeps you small because you're constantly molding yourself into what others want you to be. But living with boundaries sets you free because you finally step into who you were designed to be. That freedom looks like having the courage to say no when it doesn't align with your values. It looks like honoring your own time as much as you honor everyone else's. It looks like surrounding yourself with people who uplift you instead of drain you. And in that freedom, you discover that you don't need everyone's approval. You only need the right people who respect who you are and what you stand for. When you live unapologetically, you stop apologizing for dreaming big. You stop apologizing for having standards. You stop apologizing for removing yourself from places and people that no longer serve your growth. This isn't arrogance, it's alignment. It's living in sync with your worth. And the most powerful thing about boundaries is that they don't just change how others see you. They change how you see yourself. You start walking taller, speaking bolder, and choosing wiser because you finally realize you are worthy of being valued, not used. The truth is, people may not like it when you first create these boundaries. Some will walk away. Some will criticize you. Some will even try to guilt you back into your old patterns. But here's the thing. You don't need everyone to stay. The ones who belong in your life will respect your growth, not resent it. The ones who truly love you will celebrate your strength, not fear it. And the ones who leave were never meant to go with you into the next chapter anyway. Boundaries don't destroy relationships. They refine them. They filter out the ones who are only there for convenience and reveal the ones who are there for commitment. When you live without boundaries, you're always running someone else's race. You're chasing their approval, their validation, their standards. And that's why you feel like you're always finishing last. But when you establish your boundaries, you stop running for them and start running for you. You stop competing for a place in someone else's story and start writing your own. And in that story, you are not last. You are strong, you are respected, you are free. So today is your turning point. This is your moment to decide that you will no longer betray yourself just to keep others comfortable. This is your moment to declare that you will no longer let fear of rejection keep you from protecting your worth. This is your moment to draw the line, stand on it, and let the world know, I will not be used, I will not be dismissed, and I will not finish last. Now is the time to take that step. Start setting those boundaries. Start protecting your peace. Start living free and unapologetic. And if this message has spoken to you, if it has awakened something inside you, then don't keep it to yourself. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, because you never know how many lives could be changed when one person decides they're done finishing last and ready to start living first. Some of the greatest lessons you will ever learn in life won't come from your victories, they'll come from your wounds. Pain has a way of teaching you things success never could. Every disappointment, every betrayal, every moment where someone crossed a line you didn't even know needed to exist has been a classroom. The people who used you were unknowingly writing your textbook. The times you felt overlooked or undervalued were secretly shaping your awareness of what you truly deserve. Pain isn't wasted, it's an instructor. And if you pay attention, it will teach you how to transform weakness into wisdom and heartbreak into strength. Many of the boundaries people finally set weren't born out of calm reflection. They were born out of pain that left scars. That friend who always borrowed money and never paid you back. That partner who kept taking your love but never gave it in return. That boss who drained your energy and made you feel small. Those experiences cut deep, but they forced you to realize something vital. You cannot keep allowing people to cross lines that don't exist. Pain demanded that you draw them. Pain made you stop tolerating what was once acceptable. Pain gave you the courage to say no more. Without those experiences, you might have kept living without limits, allowing yourself to be drained until nothing was left. But the moment the pain became too great, something shifted inside you, and you discovered the power of boundaries. What's powerful about this transformation is that pain doesn't just reveal what hurts, it reveals what matters. If someone disrespected your time and it broke you, it's because your time is valuable. If someone played with your emotions and it devastated you, it's because your heart is priceless. If someone dismissed your worth and it wounded you, it's because you are worthy of so much more. Pain has a way of highlighting the treasure inside of you by showing you exactly where it was mishandled. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. You start to protect it differently. You stop handing it out freely. You realize that if others can't handle it with care, they don't deserve access to it. And it's in those moments that strength begins to rise. Strength doesn't come from never being hurt. It comes from surviving the hurt and refusing to let it define you. Every tear you cried, every night you laid awake replaying what someone did to you, every time you felt invisible, all of it was shaping a stronger version of you. A version that now recognizes warning signs, that knows how to walk away, that refuses to accept the same treatment again. You may have been broken, but you are not destroyed. You may have been taken for granted, but you are no longer blind. The very pain that once felt like your downfall has now become your armor. And here's the beauty. Pain doesn't just toughen you, it softens you in the right ways. Because once you know what it feels like to be used, you become intentional about never using others. Once you know what it feels like to be dismissed, you make sure you honor others. Once you know what it feels like to be overlooked, you pay attention to those who are often forgotten. Pain gives you depth. It makes you more compassionate, but it also makes you more discerning. You no longer confuse kindness with weakness because you've lived the consequences of it. You no longer confuse love with tolerance because you've seen where that road leads. You no longer confuse loyalty with slavery because you've been bound by it before. Pain refines your definition of everything. So while the world might look at scars as evidence of damage, you can look at them as evidence of training. You didn't just go through it, you grew through it. Every hurt became a seed, and those seeds are now producing wisdom, courage, and clarity. Pain turned you into a builder of boundaries. Pain turned you into someone who no longer settles for less. Pain turned you into someone who knows that strength isn't the absence of wounds, but the ability to rise with them.